Wonderful. So we are having a question and answers, and who will start first? If there are no questions and answers. Big voice, huh? I am an old man, I cannot hear so well, I cannot see so well. When you are 74, you will understand, huh?
Something on the 4 idhipad, please, Bhante.
Pardon?
The 4 idhipad.
Idhipada, yeah.
Cup.
Well, you should know, they are chanda, huh? Then they are virya, they are mimamsa, huh? And what comes also?
Chitta.
Chitta, yes. So these are the conditions for mastering the samadhi, mastering the dhyanas. When you master the dhyanas, you can use supernatural powers. Huh? And the Buddha himself, he used supernatural powers under the Bodhi tree, huh? Namely the divine eye to see how we beings are reborn according to the karma, and to see his past lives, so that this enable him to understand, penetrate thoroughly the dependent origination as being the nature of all beings. So it is very important. If you want to become a great arahat, you have to have ubhaya vimukti, both liberations. That means by shamatha and also by vipassana. That means you need the 8 vimokshas practice, you need to master them, you need to master the sanya vedaita nirodha samapatti. Then you can become a arahat with many paramis. Otherwise you become an arahat, but your shining will be little compared in the tika of the Brahmajala Sutra to the light of the light fly. When you master the vimokshas, you are like the light of the lamp. When you become the great arahat, you are like the star. When you become when you become the Pratyeka Buddha, you are like the moon. When you become the fully enlightened Buddha, you are like the sun, enlightening everything. So, how to explain it? By this principle of suchness which penetrates everything. That makes sense then.
And is there an etymological link between the word sati and the word satya?
Sati means smrti in Sanskrit. Pali is related very much to Sanskrit. And satya is from sat. Sat is existent, being. But the smrti is smarati, iti smrti is from the root smr, which means to recollect, to remember. So the root is different. Smri and sat is different.
And the words chitta and chitra?
Chitta and chitra, they are related.
I see.
The chitta means alambanam chinteti iti chittam, but also chinoti iti chittam. The chinoti what? First there has to be the chitra, the nimitta, Then when you have the nimitta, then you have a mental impression. When you collect these mental impressions, you collect the chitras also. So this is the process. You hold to the nimitta, therefore it becomes very stable in the mind. When it becomes very stable to the mind, then it will accumulate. And that's how we beings function. Everybody lives in a different world, according to the nimittas which we have accumulated. And they are basically chitras.
Thank you so much, Bhante.
So Bhanteji, we are learning this very useful technique from Asanga, which is based on the Shravak Bhumi. And a little while earlier, I was wondering when you were talking about the Ekachitta and the method of suchness, does this text also introduce us to a meditation technique which is more non-dual?
Yes, at the end is the meditation technique.
Okay.
And the meditation, shamatha, vipassana, is one parami. They don't differentiate. So it is explained, maybe before we finish, I will read, it's a very short explanation of shamatha and vipassana. So basically it is a very, very short explanation, but may be useful to you.
It will be useful, but
explanation really comes from understanding the explanation of the text, then you will see. Basically, shamatha means first, according to Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, the Bodhisattva Bhumi, the progress in meditation is the 5 in Sanskrit. First, adhana. Adhana means placing, right? You have to learn how to place the mind on the object, right?
yes.
And in order to place the mind on the object correctly, you have to go to pratyahara, to see very clearly that the objects come from the mind. Then you can understand adhara. Now you have read this Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, it is very clear. What means adhara? It means a base. So you have to understand that what you think is not real. This is the problem in the world. We believe that our thinking is something real and that the object of thinking we can really grasp and it is really there. That's why so much confusion in the world. So many conflicts, wars, killings, hate, due to this misunderstanding. We believe that our thinking is objective, but it is completely subjective. It is just accumulation of the pictures. That is adhara. So when you have adhara, you have yonisho manasikara and ayonisho manasikara. The yonisho manasikara is different from the original meaning. Here it means that you understand that your thought actually does not reach the real object. It is subjective. It is created by, it comes from the alaya, which creates the illusion of the real subject and the real object. That is adhara. You understand the base must be suchness. Then you meditate You master the dhyanas, you master the shamatha. So that is aloka. The light will come. When you have light, aloka, first you need adhana, then you need adhara, then you need aloka in the mind. Then you will have adarsha, mirror. The mind is just a mirror. If it is dirty, it is subjected to all kinds of distortions. If it is pure, it just reflects the object. It does not change the nature of the object. Then you have the ashraya paravriti, the change of the base. The mind changes the base, so it removes the defilements. The base becomes pure, and the base is only the mind. So, in order to achieve these 5 steps, you have to practice shamatha and vipassana. So, adhana, very important to understand that your thinking is not objective, it is always subjective. We are all subjected to subjectivity due to the collecting the images in our mind. But the pure mirror is free from images, so it can reflect really things as it really are. But we cling to our images. He is good, he is bad. I want that because she's like this. I don't want that because she's like that. Or he is like that, he is like this. I like because he was kind to me. I dislike because he scolded me. These are very deep tendencies. But they are absolutely subjective. What you most like can become next moment the object of the most intense disliking. That's why Buddha teaches piyato jayate soko, piyato jayate bhayam, piyato vipamutasa, nati soko, nati bhayam. Because we cling to that, what we like, so we produce worries, we produce fear. If we don't cling to that, what we want, we don't produce worries, we don't produce fear. And what we like is completely subjective, because of the collecting these pictures, making them very stable. Very wonderful Yogacara. Without Yogacara, very difficult to understand Buddhism. No matter whether you are practicing what kind of meditation, according to the Theravada methods, according to Mahayana method, without a Yogacara you will not get clarity. Clarity about what? That our thinking is subjective. Even if you make these categories in Abhidharma, they are also subjective. They can be in different system, explained in a different way. So it does not mean that Theravada is right, Sarvastivada is wrong, Sautrantika is right. So, as long as we hold to the thinking, we already are deprived of the true reality. But it does not mean that we should not think, we should think even more. Nobody has developed such a strong logic like the Yogacara. The logic, Buddhist logic is Yogacara. All is unreal because all is impermanent.
While meditating, as soon as the awareness goes on breath, the
You
awareness...
have to speak loud, huh? You are also like me.
This microphone is just helping the recording.
Okay. So, as soon as we start meditation and take the awareness to breath, the body awareness automatically and simultaneously arises, and also the vice versa. Are they so closely?
What do you mean vice versa?
If
When the mind arises,
if I take the awareness,
rupa arises. When the rupa arises, the mind arises. Yes, of course, it is so. So what is the problem?
no problem. I just wanted to share that also if
It is dependent origination. Vijnana, pachaya, nama rupa. Nama rupa pachaya, sad ayatana pachaya, faso pachaya, vedana pachaya, tanha. That is the essence of Buddhism. Now, because we have tanha, we are caught. And caught in what? Caught in the karma. Because of the karma, we hold to nama rupa. But our differentiation of nama rupa is not objective. Nama rupa is there, but our understanding of it is not objective. It is always influenced by our karma. That consciousness which gives rise to the nama rupa, that is the past consciousness, which was created by the samskaras. Right?
If I've understood correctly, the statement that is being made is while watching the breath, simultaneously there is awareness of body.
Yeah, because
While watching body, there is awareness of breath as well.
it is explained in the text also. You cannot understand breath on the base of mind only. You cannot understand the breath on the base of rupa only. You can only understand on the base of their being together. There is no other way to understand the breath.
One question. Why do you think mankind has lost interest in this kind of spiritual studies? Whereas on one hand, there is a big rise in religious fundamentalism and religion in general.
Well, you are saying exactly what it is. Our civilization is now materialistic civilization. No matter whether west or east or north or south, we have been all, so to say, brainwashed by this materialistic civilization. That is why we are living in Indian thinking, we are living in Kali Yuga. But the paradox is we have never been so prosperous as now. But spiritually, we have never been so poor as now. And this is the paradox of materialism.
A related question is that all this science and the extent of knowledge that has been created 2,000 years ago, there's a risk of it's getting lost if it's not simplified and if it's not further researched and practiced and distributed. So any thought you have as to how this can be more simplified and better distributed?
If you read carefully this text, he explains in this text the purpose for writing this treatise. There are 8 points. I did not translate because we would never come to the more important things. Among the 8 purposes is that we beings, we either understand through long explanations, or we understand through short explanations in the sutras, or we understand through a long explanation reading many shastras, or we need one very compact shastra which summarizes the most important meanings. And that is why I have written this treatise. He does not say directly, but he just pointed out. So the Ashwagosha, or whoever the author of this, he wanted to make the meaning clear and compact, so that intelligent people can, on the base of it, get a clear idea of what is Buddhism about. So it is very precious.
But sorry, at the same time, it's very complicated. It's not simple to comprehend.
Unless, and also the Chinese language is very mysterious. If you read the translation without explanation, you will also be quite at doubt. I try my best not to base myself just on literal translation of the text, but on the base of commentaries. There are so many Chinese commentaries. I just put together the most important meaning which the intelligent commentators have pointed out. And there are so many commentators, especially in the Zen tradition. This text is very dear, especially to the Zen tradition. And Zen tradition has to do with Chinese philosophy. And Chinese philosophy is using very sometimes mysterious nomenclature, which you don't find really in Indian Buddhism. We will come to it tomorrow also. They speak of the original enlightenment and so on, and the aspect of the original enlightenment and the aspect of non-enlightenment. It is very confusing.
It is.
Through the aspect of non-enlightenment, we understand the enlightenment. Through the aspect of enlightenment, we understand the non-enlightenment. Everything is related, and it is rather difficult to understand. So tomorrow we will come to it. There is a step-by-step realization. Tomorrow we will come to it. First, we have to realize that the bad thoughts are harming us. And the author explained, even so it is a realization, it is not really realization, because you have not yet understood impermanence. No? But it is a beginning. And it is a very important beginning. Without that beginning, we cannot really get into meditation. Even if we realize impermanence, our meditation will still not be on a high level. So this is a very important base. And the deeper this base becomes, the easier the meditation is.
Sorry, one last question. What is the source of thoughts? Because it said that in a day, a
yes,
normal...
it is all explained. The source of thoughts is the mind which moves. If the mind does not move, we do not think anything. But as soon as the mind starts moving, it brings the subjective reality. We cannot possibly avoid it. That is why it is so important to also understand that these concepts of Buddhism, they are not the highest reality, they are only the conventional reality to lead you to the highest reality. But unfortunately, Theravada Buddhism often emphasizes that they are the highest reality, these different cetasikas, these different kinds of rupas. But they are, from the point of view of non-dualistic meditation, they are only skillful means to understand the highest reality. But they can never, that which is differentiated can never be the highest reality. And that is very important, especially in our times, when we see so many conflicts based on the fundamentalist attitude towards religion. These people, they saw it very, very clearly. The fundamentalism is the greatest enemy of all religion, including Buddhism also. Does not mean when you become Buddhist, you are free from fundamentalism. Same. The Christian teaching is not fundamentalist, but they made it very, very fundamentalist.
If we interpret source as origin, could it be said that the source of thoughts is the alaya vigyan?
Yes, sure. We will learn in alaya vijnana you have the aspect of these two aspects coming together, the aspect of enlightenment and the aspect of non-enlightenment. And that's why eka samskara samadhi. This thought comes from emptiness, and emptiness comes from thought. There is no thought without emptiness, there is no emptiness without the thought. But we don't see it like this. That's why we are caught in the paradox. To see, penetrate this paradox is precisely the chan, the samadhi of wisdom. If people could practice Zen, there would be no problem in the world.
Bhantiji, when you say the essence is not separate from the characteristic, could we in other words say that the two truths are always
the four
together?
truths, they are actually one truth in non-dualistic tradition.
So
There is only one truth. The four truths, they are only the skillful means to understand the one truth.
Okay, but when you say essence, can I think of essence as the ultimate truth and the characteristic as the conventional truth?
Yes,
Okay.
sure.
Okay, thank
Sure,
you.
this is a very good explanation. Yes, indeed, this is so. Without the conventional truth, you cannot understand the highest truth. Without the highest truth, the conventional truth also cannot be understood.
And Bhantiji, how is the Zen tradition connected to Dzogchen and Mahamudra? If you can please.
Of course they are connected. They are based on the same principle. They are on the same principle of the suchness. The Mahamudra is investigation of suchness. It's a realization, direct realization of suchness. The same for Dzogchen. But the methods, they vary because different culture. Taoism is very much influencing Zen. In Tibet they had Ben. It is very much connected with Dzogchen. You cannot really differentiate the Dzogchen from Ben philosophy. And the skillful means are the same. The Tibetans don't distinguish really. The Chinese also don't distinguish clearly between Taoism and Buddhism.
And would it be correct to say that even though all the Tibetan schools, so to speak, call themselves Madhyamikas, of course, within that there are a lot of debates and discussions.
Yes, they are Prasangika, they are Svatantrika, all these discussions. In China, they don't take it seriously very much.
Right.
They did not get involved.
Right.
In that.
But also in Tibetan Buddhism, the gateway into Tantra is meant to be Uttara Tantra Shastra, which is again about Tathagata Garbha. And Uttara Tantra Shastra, is that Yogacara philosophy? I think so, no?
Well, it is mixture of Yogacara and Madhyamika. You cannot really strictly differentiate. The teaching of Maitreya is also Madhyamika and is also Yogacara. According to Tibetan tradition, the Abhisamaya Alankara is also attributed to Maitreya, not in Chinese tradition. But it is taught as being the Madhyamika philosophy, no? Abhisamaya Alankara is based on Madhyamika.
Svatantrika Madhyamika.
Svatantrika Madhyamika.
And in the Chinese tradition, who do they attribute
Well, they did not have this text.
I see.
It was translated from Tibetan, I think. Now they have it.
And just wondering, Bhanteji, have you looked, I'm just asking, Mipham Rinpoche, because it's very interesting, many things the way you say, they connect also very well to Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche's teachings and Mipham Rinpoche, and I'm just...
And finally, the non-dualistic teachings, they are very similar. That's why Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche is emphasizing this: we should fight against materialism, against lack of spirituality, not fight against Svatantrika or Yogacara. It doesn't make much sense in our time. In those times it was very important because according to that they could get support from the government and so on if they won in the discussion.
And this great debate between Kamala Shila and Hashang, how is it seen in the Chinese tradition?
It is not mentioned, it only comes from the Tibetan sources. Even I think the Huashan is not one of the important patriarchs of Chinese Zen. But he was a Chinese monk who became very influential because he approached the Tibetan court, imperial court, and many of the wives, they were his followers and disciples. So he became very influential. So the emperor, he wanted to decide who is right and who is wrong, so he arranged in Lhasa this great gathering and discussion, and Kamala Shila won. But his argument for Zen, as Master Shen Yen, he has had some when Dalai Lama visited Taiwan, my teacher had a discussion with, and they both recognized that this both they have a certain point to make, and Huashan makes a point which is not exactly the tradition, no. It is more his own understanding. But the Zen, problem with the Zen, it is very, very deep and it can be very easily misunderstood. I have myself experienced many times on myself and on others. Like I went, now it's have some fun, 5 o'clock. I went on a taxi in Taiwan and I was wearing the robe, and the taxi driver asked me, "Are you a Buddhist?" He had full of this Buddhist Zen and so on. And I said, "Yes, I'm a Buddhist monk, and can't you see?" And he said, "I am also the Buddhist. How do you practice?" "Well, I study and I meditate." He said, "I also study and meditate." "Very good. How do you study and meditate?" "I drive." And I asked him, "Are you enlightened?" He said, "Well, I know about driving." So he believes that knowing about driving, it's enough to become enlightened. He does not need to study. He has a full attention. He is completely aware of driving. Okay, if somebody thinks he is enlightened, nobody can teach him anything. No? That is a problem. If somebody thinks that he is enlightened because he can drink tea with full attention, nobody can teach him anything. Useless. And there is so much to learn in Buddhism. So this is a disadvantage of Zen. It can be easily misinterpreted. Who can decide if you enlighten or not enlighten? The old master would kick, shout and so on, but nowadays nobody is kicking, shouting and standing on the head or cutting the fingers. They had very drastic methods in old China, but they were sitting all day and night. Then you can ask, where does it all come from? When you have penetrated, then just drink your tea. But when you think you have penetrated by just drinking the tea, and that you have realized something very difficult to know. So this Tibetan tradition is more gradual understanding. And there is a gradual understanding in Zen, but not so clear. In Tibetan tradition, very, very clear. That is advantage of the Tibetan tradition. That's why, because these great masters are gone, in China, there was a cultural revolution. They put either in a re-education camp or killed them simply. And now many people think that they have something, but they don't do the very hard practice as in the olden times. And they give transmission even. That is a problem. So in China many people now study Tibetan Buddhism, which is more clear. But it is a wonderful tradition, but you need a wonderful master. And that is not so easy now. And wonderful master, he will never say anything about enlightenment. No one who is enlightened, no one who is arahat will say that he is arahat. No one who is a real bodhisattva will say that he is a bodhisattva. That is the most important principle. So even the thought that one has realized something is already just a thought. That you can read in the scripture. Okay.
Bhante, about the four Brahma Viharas as the object of meditation, what is your opinion and what do the different schools say about that?
Well, this is my speciality. I have been always emphasizing the Brahma Viharas. In Theravada tradition, the Brahma Viharas object is only sentient beings. There is no mention of any other object. Therefore, the Nikayas explain, we had a discussion on that, I think it is Halida Vasa Sutta, but it is not, we could not find it. It must be some other name similar to that. In the Samyutta Nikaya there is a sutta where it is said that you cannot attain enlightenment by the four Brahma Viharas because the objects are the beings. You have to practice parallel to it the four foundations of mindfulness to see the non-existence of ego very clearly. Then you can get the realization on the Brahma Viharas. So you must complement it and base it on the four foundations of mindfulness, which brings you to the realization of anatta. Now, in the Transcendental Yoga Transcendental Wisdom Sutras, which are the base for both Yogacara and Madhyamika, it is explained that there are three objects of Brahma Viharas. First, the beings. That is only basic object. Second object is the dharmas. All the dharmas also, they should be object of the Brahma Viharas. Because like Arahat, he does not see any beings, but he sees the dharmas. And ultimately, the ultimate reality, which is the abode of the Buddha, should be the object of the Brahma Viharas. This is very close to the Indian tradition, Bhakti tradition. Mahayana is also kind of, as you see, arising of faith in Mahayana. It is the Bhakti tradition. We cannot understand by words the ultimate reality. We can only understand conventional reality. And by devotion to the ultimate reality, you see the illusion from the very beginning of the differentiating thought. So the ultimate reality in some Mahayana sutras, especially in Chinese tradition, Huyen, the Pure Land tradition, it says, where does the Buddha dwell? In infinite love, infinite compassion, infinite joy, and infinite equanimity. This is the abode of the Buddha, which is no abode. And this is very reasonable. But if you explain the object only beings, then you cannot use it for enlightenment. Because beings cannot be object of enlightenment. But the non-existence of being can be, of course.
But Bhanteji, if a Putujan who has not attained even the first jhana, he generates a compassionate thought saying, may all beings be happy, can that be considered a Brahma Vihara meditation?
Sure. But it is the meditation is in stages, no?
Mm-hmm.
So you will read also, everything starts, meditation starts with understanding how the unwholesome thought are harming you and harming beings.
Mm-hmm.
When this is clear, everything will become clear. If that is not clear, nothing can become clear.
Basically, you traverse the path of wisdom and concentration then.
So there can be Putujana who has much more merit than the one who just practicing Vipassana and does not care about anyone else. The Putujana, it is even in the commentaries described. There was in the Visuddhimagga, there was a teacher who was a teacher of the Arahats. This teacher of the Arahats, he had mastery of the jhanas, but he does not have no interest in nirvana because of his compassion. And he teaches many Arahats. But then he is dying, it is said. And when he is dying, it is a custom in the Sangha, they ask him, where will you go, master? And he says, well, I don't know, I am just an ordinary person. So everybody is astonished, our teacher is just an ordinary person. So he sees how they are disappointed, so he enters into deep concentration, and right, he's there. Yes, and he has penetrated the nature of the self, being empty. So if he becomes a bodhisattva, according to the Mahayana teachings, the Arahat, he can become a bodhisattva. Yes. According to the Theravada teaching, it is not possible. Even when you become Sotapanna, you cannot become a bodhisattva. So that is a difference. The Arahat, if he gives rise to the great compassion, not just to ordinary compassion, he can become a great bodhisattva. So maybe that monk has become a bodhisattva, or he realized bodhisattva, or Arahat, it is not explained. Actually, the Stiramati and the commentaries says that the Arahat is actually bodhisattva. Because according to the Lotus Sutra, which is so popular in China, the reality of the Buddha is the ultimate reality. There is no real other reality. And that the reality is a reality without any tendencies even. The Arahat may still have some habits, but the Buddha has no, he just reflects things as they are. So according to Bodhisattva Bhumi Shastra, the Buddha does not need any attention, he does not need any vitarka to understand the things. We need attention, we need vitarka. So the Buddha is like a mirror. So he reflects the evil, but does not react to the evil, but he sees skillful means how to lead from evil to the good. So he can convert innumerable bad spirits, like the Padmasambhava. He can tame the untamables. The Arahat cannot do it. Even the Maudgalyana was killed by the bandits with all his supernatural powers. But no one can kill Buddha, because the real Buddha is the highest reality.
Bhante, in the interests of those of us who still need vitarka and still cultivating Yoniso Manasikara, perhaps I can suggest we have one more question, and then if there is another question, we can have time for one final question.
And then do a little bit meditation, huh? 20 minutes, huh? What time we end? 6, okay. So we have like 45 minutes, yeah. Yes, please.
You spoke about the cultural revolution in China and the fact that all the further study and contemplation got in some ways obliterated due to cultural revolution. I have a simple question. Where are present-day Ivy Leagues where Buddhist contemplation is happening and centers of excellence, where this study is still going on and is being carried forward, because there's a grave risk?
The tradition is best preserved by the Tibetan community and by Burmese, to some extent by Thai community also. Burma, unfortunately, is the most conservative and oppressive government, only supporting the most conservative elements in the Sangha. The Thailand is on much better position, but still the Sangha is very, very conservative, too conservative. And in Sri Lanka, their tradition comes from Thailand and from Burma. It was very much lost.
And how about India?
In India, the Tibetans is here Himalaya area is the only, so say, living tradition of Buddhism. Otherwise, these new converts, they are this Ambedkar Buddhism. In India, you have two types of Buddhists. Either the intellectuals who understand deeply how, who have knowledge of Sanskrit, knowledge of Pali, who have studied and who were impressed by the depths of the Buddhist thoughts, and who were impressed by, because through Buddhism, Indian culture has spread to so many countries. So they have international mind, and they are very liberal, so they became Buddhists. So either the high intellectuals or the mostly illiterate people. So this is the situation in India. Now these Buddhists, these intellectuals are few, but these almost illiterate people, there are many. But among these illiterate people now, they are slowly also rising up some intellectuals. So there is certainly, and the new developments are there. Because India is changing all the time. The caste system is not anymore what it used to be, and it's more officially it's just a prejudice, but it still exists.
But the deep tragedy is that the knowledge which was around the Bodhi tree and the entire circuit where Buddha taught, that entire source of knowledge where a lot of intellectual inspection would have and inquiry would have happened, that was all lost.
What is the wonder of Buddhism? We do not really know exactly what the Buddha has taught. Each tradition has a different interpretation. The essence is the same, of course, without dependent origination. Without emptiness there is no Buddhism. But it is interpreted in many different ways. And whatever scriptures we have were written 500 years after the death of Buddha. So now imagine that, suppose there is no written Shakespeare, and now somebody tells you, I know Shakespeare by heart, and he will dictate Hamlet to you. So it will be very difficult to believe that he is interpreting exactly what the Shakespeare has performed on the stage. No? It's impossible. So in Mahayana tradition, they say, Yat subhashitam tat sarvam Buddha bhashitam. Whatever is well said, that is the wisdom of the Buddha. Because it is very, very difficult to determine exactly. So wisdom of the Buddha spreads to the society, wisdom of the Buddha spread to the way beyond the world. Wisdom of the Buddha includes everything. But how to define exactly this is the wisdom that historical Buddha has taught, and this is composed by intelligent masters, is impossible nowadays. In Theravada, they believe that they are the true teachings of the Buddha, but everybody believes that. And in fact, historically, they are also one of the sects which has developed. From the scholarship point of view, you cannot say that the Pali is the only authentic tradition. It is impossible. No scholar will accept it. But it is object of the belief, and whatever is belief is very helpful if there is tradition also. But from scholastic point of view, it is impossible to accept. So every tradition is the interpretation, of course. So we can say that the Pali Buddhism is a Sri Lankan Buddhism. In a way, it is, yes. That is a Sri Lanka contribution to the Buddhist thought. And it is a great contribution indeed, but not the only contribution.